But everybody seems to be leaving and going to Silicon Valley. What can the government put in place to ensure that we retain our talent, especially in tech centers like Kitchener Centre?
Commercialization and conversion into industrialization. It's obviously lacking in Canada right now, and talent is moving to other jurisdictions. So how can we better on that? How can we do better on it? How can we make sure that all the Canadian wealth that is spent on research is actually converted into commercialization in Canada and stays in Canada?
Our colleagues opposite noted that perhaps it was either irresponsible, not appropriate for government to allocate these funds without having an AI strategy in place first.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Today we are joined by Professor Eric Kolasik, Professor Computational and Data Systems Institute, McGill University, and he has joined us by video conference. We are also joined by Mr. Francois Lebonti, Chief Executive Officer from Computer Research Institute of Montreal. He's here in person. And our third witness for today is Mr. Hugo Larochelle, Scientific Director representing Mila Quebec Artificial Intelligence Institute, and he's joined by video conference.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. My question is going to be for you, Hugo. So today, we've heard over and over that we don't even have a definition of what Canadian sovereignty means for AI and innovation in this current government. So we have no definition on what to protect and no definition on what we want to retain, both with our innovation and our talent. But the money seems to be flowing. There's already hundreds of millions of dollars being spent. It seems to me like this government is running with their eyes closed. I'm going to ask you, do you believe that there are guardrails or plans in place to ensure that the almost $1.3 billion for innovation funding goes to tech companies in Kitchener, for example, to retain our innovation and talent, instead of it leaving to foreign entities that's taking our innovation and talent?
I'm not aware of exactly the plan on how that money will be spent, but I think there are a lot of general ideas that would probably be recognized. One of them being having compute infrastructure that we more fully control for certain areas. And I think I mentioned the importance of talent. I think this is where everything starts. And I think that is one way in which we do play a big role in terms of having a strategy for our sovereignty. That just making sure that we are training here the future workers of our digital economy that will be highly based on AI. So those two seem like important components, but I'm sure, this ecosystem is rich. There's a number of perspectives that might inform what exactly we mean by this. But those would be two key ones that certainly I would advocate for.
In your experience, how much infrastructure do we currently control?
A lot of I can largely speak in terms of the research that is being done at Mila and within our walls by our professors and our students. And we do have a good amount of infrastructure that is locally based. Some of it is based at Université Laval in Quebec City. Some of it we have in Montreal. Sometimes also our researchers and students will use some of the cloud providers for some of their compute. Depends a lot on their needs and what they're trying to achieve. And I would say, just generally speaking, that does make sense to me, that depending on the specific needs and what you're trying to achieve and its context, then sometimes you want something that's local, sometimes something that's in the cloud will be sufficient. So it depends a lot.
I've noticed too, we have amazing talent coming out of Kitchener Centre, but the thing is we educate very well where I'm from, but everybody seems to be leaving and going to Silicon Valley. What can the government put in place to ensure that we retain our talent, especially in tech centers like Kitchener Centre?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's a great question, and I think about it a lot. I think a lot about, especially from the point of view of the students that we're training, and making sure they have opportunities at the level of their talent. So if they're looking for an academic career as a professor, I think this is where the CFA chair program is one key element. This is why I emphasized this in my remarks. So just making sure that as academics, as scientists, we really make sure to provide them the opportunity at the level of their expertise. I think for those who might be more interested in applying AI and building tools that are used by people, making sure that we're equipping them with the tools to start their own company, for instance. I think this is something at Mila we're thinking a lot about these days. We have this idea of a venture scientist program that we're currently building, which as the scientific director, my hope is that this program will make sure that our students, some of them might decide to go in at universities and such, but some of them might be interested in potentially building something from scratch and building a company. I just want this program to ensure that those who decide not to do that, not to build a startup, it's not because they didn't feel they weren't equipped to understand how to do this kind of work and approach this kind of challenge. So I would double down on that as well.
I agree with supporting startups. We do a very good job at incubating in Kitchener Centre, but commercialization doesn't happen here in Canada. We don't have an environment where venture capitalists want to invest in Canada. We have too high of tax, regulatory burdens are too high. So although I agree with having the incubation for these startups, what can this government do better to make sure that they also can commercialize and stay here in Canada and again not leave?
Mm-hmm. I'll speak from perhaps some of the conversations I've had, also including with local investors. I think one thing I've heard a number of times was access to pre-seed and seed funding as being something that was potentially lacking. I've heard that, but this is not something I've experienced myself, but I've heard in our community. I know there's some of that in the budget, which I think is a good step.
Yeah, I think there's money for pre-seed and seed, but it's where you get into B and C funding that the venture capitalists, it's too risk averse here in Canada. So I'm just going to ask again, what do you think the government could do to make it a better environment for when they go to commercialization, which is B and C funding, to make it a better environment for capitalists to want to actually invest here in Canada?
I could maybe speculate, but because I'm not a venture VC, I can't speak directly to that experience. I'm familiar with Radical Ventures in Toronto, for instance, which has a lot of success. I feel like I don't have a fully informed perspective on that.
Time is up for Ms. MP DeRidder. Now we will proceed to MP McKelvey.
So in our budget, we have funding for recruitment of top international researchers. So I'm just wondering, what should we be looking for? What might be the challenges we face as we try to do this in the space of AI? And are there gaps that we want to be attracting for AI, for example?
It is 6 minutes. Sorry, I said 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, I come from the U.S., ma femme est québécoise, so it's been a pleasure that we moved 3 years ago to Montreal, but I've spent 30 years of my career prior in the U.S., much of it in the Boston area. The U.S. is a highly competitive ecosystem in and of itself. I think we have a few advantages from the Canadian perspective. One, I find that the interaction, the collaboration that is here is actually much greater than it is in the U.S. I think it's much more of dog eat dog in the U.S., and it's been a delight to come here and find that for the most part, you roll up your sleeves, you have people next to you with their sleeves rolled up as well. I think particularly in the last 6 months, in the academic environment, things have become rather fraught, rather tense. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of concern, particularly when you're talking about concepts like EDI. And a lot of that is where the AI and society interface are now working is at that forefront of responsible AI. So I think there is really a moment of opportunity for recruitment to flow much more in Canada's advantage than it may have even up to, say, 6 months ago. And I know there are certainly efforts being made at university levels. I think the more that the governments at both provincial and federal levels can help accentuate that and help support that, the better that we will do on attracting the AI talent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would want to start with Professor Kolzak. This is the second round of questioning, and we had our first round of questioning where we had two witnesses that extensively talk about the need of infrastructure, ecosystem, sovereignty on AI research and its retention in Canada. It's not that we are in a political instability or that we have a government that is in power from last 10 years and now heading into their 11th year. They are spending millions and millions of dollars when it comes to bureaucracy or when it comes to even funding under the name of AI. We just heard from previous witness that they have given over $250 million and signed a MOU with the US-based firm, while the purpose of that those funding was to enhance the SMEIs in Canada. And in your testimony, you talk about that the collaboration in Canada is higher as compared to US and other models. So I think what is lacking in your opinion that if we have higher collaboration as compared to other jurisdictions, why are we not able to commercialize on AI or on IP despite those higher level of collaborations?
That's a great question. Thank you very much for that. That covers a lot of ground and a lot of time. I've only been here 3 years. I don't go back the 10 years, so I'm going to try and comment within where I feel I have some experience. The collaborations I was referring to was particularly at the academic level. The inclination to collaborate across institutions, both within the city of Montreal, for example, and also across the country, I think is something that is built into many of the funding calls that I've seen here in a way that I felt certainly is not unheard of in the U.S., but is less common. So that was the collaboration that I was referring to. The challenges regarding the flow of funds that you were talking about earlier, I feel I'm on the edge of where I can comment with any expertise, but it does seem to me that there may be a catch-up game that needs to be played here, in the sense that the U.S. has been developing their infrastructure, their relationships and whatnot, it is although Canada has been involved for the 10 years that you said. It may be that with the shifting landscapes, one needs to rethink sort of how those flow, and yet at the same time, these things can't be spun on a dime. The amount of infrastructure that the Googles, the AWSs, and whatever has, that's fairly substantial. I think the important thing is to be talking about it, which we're doing here, obviously, and beginning to think about how it might be actioned.
Thank you. If I can go to Professor, I'm not sure if I can pronounce that, Lorche?
Close enough.
Close enough.
Shell. Yeah.
Professor Lorche, you are saying that you worked with Google and other MNCs and now you chose to come back to Canada and work for the local, to promote that sovereignty that we are talking about in the past session and this hour. Breakthrough research and its commercialization and conversion into industrialization. It's obviously lacking in Canada right now, and talent is moving to other jurisdictions. So how can we better on that? How can we do better on it? How can we make sure that all the Canadian wealth that is spent on research is actually converted into commercialization in Canada and stays in Canada?
Thank you for your question. Also, maybe I'll clarify that I've been in Montreal in the past 8 years. So when I was at Google, it was to open a team and a lab here. Something I thought was really important to create opportunities for Canadians here. But then, recently I moved to scientific director at Mila 3 months ago. So my answer is similar to, I think, the one I've given before, related to making sure, broadly speaking, that we offer opportunities for our researchers that are based here and at the level of their talent and their capability. And one area where I think we can seize more opportunities is in the area of startups. So this is why more funding available to help those motivated in taking some of their research and building concretely new tools and products and opportunities to put more intelligence in our society. So put this technology in the hands of in various parts or spheres of our society. I think there's something here. While we do that, we really should make sure that we continue producing local talent. So that is something that we need to maintain, and then make sure that beyond university research or academic research.
Sorry for interrupting. Time is up for MP Mahal.
Our colleagues opposite noted that perhaps it was either irresponsible, not appropriate for government to allocate these funds without having an AI strategy in place first. Can you talk about the urgency of why putting those resources into supporting the ecosystem was so important, and why having a 30-day sprint to get a strategy done with thought leaders in this space, knowing the commitments government was prepared to make, was actually important? And if you could share your thoughts on that.
The main reason, thank you for your question. The main reason to move quickly is that as we're getting to the end of the current phase of the CFAR AI chairs, we need to have a sense of what is coming after, so we can work on recruiting some of the next professors. And as I mentioned, that process takes some time. And so having some certainty, and also for the current chair awardees who are wondering whether they'll still have a chair, research chair in 4 or 5 years. And so that's why it is quite important. I think these shares, generally speaking, are pretty robust program. It's made its proof for a long period of time. So I don't think there's a lot of risk in approving it right now. And it's there to fund individuals that we can already trust because, the current chairs have a track record of innovation. So that's why I think we can move quickly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.